order the city council meeting for Monday, September 26, 2022. Everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Dave Webb.
Here.
Kevin Kadada.
Here.
Tim Root.
Here.
Cindy Fuhr.
Here.
And Scott Palava.
Here.
Okay, tonight's agenda goes through 10I. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
Will we approve the agenda as presented?
Motion by Councilman Kadada.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes. Consider approval of the minutes from the September 8th, 2022 regular meeting and the September 12th, 2022 special meeting. In addition, deletions or corrections to the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Palava, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There are no public hearings. Presentation of citizens' petitions and comments. Comments limited to 2 minutes. So if you're not on the agenda, now is your opportunity to speak. Okay, on to the consent agenda. There's a number of items tonight that include the monthly bills, the treasurer's report, the board and commission minutes. Consider approval of a Minnesota lawful, lawful gambling LG 240B application to conduct excluded bingo submitted by the American Legion Auxiliary Unit 586 to conduct bingo on November 11th, 2012. And consider approval of a quote in the amount of $18,317.50 submitted by Bouchot Enterprises. Anybody like any of those items pulled for discussion?
We approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilman Kadada.
Second.
Second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider, our old business, consider approval of an advertisement for sealed bids for the sale of 115 Alabama Street Southwest. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. This item was discussed at the September 8th City Council meeting. At that time, it was decided to table a decision on moving forward until staff spoke with, not Skywarn, Snow Wizards regarding their possible interest in the facility. I did reach out to them, and they did take an exterior look of the facility and determine that that facility does not meet their long-term needs. So they were therefore not interested in purchasing the property. So with that, the new construction of the new facility is complete. The PD's occupying it and has removed the items from the old facility. Next step is to sell the building. Council's desire was to sell it and get it in new ownership before winter, so we didn't have to maintain it, pay the utilities. Specific to the ad for bid, bids are proposed to be accepted until 4:30, Friday, October 28th. General information on the property, prior uses, ownership, utilities is included. Bids are also supposed to include the proposed purchase price and timeline for closing, the proposed land use, and then the proposed timeline for occupancy. The council should discuss if you want to put a minimum bid on there. I'm recommending a minimum bid of $100,000. Rice County has it valued at $178,000. I'm not sure if the old Lonsdale oil building is any comparison, but that's sold at auction for $141,000, $142,000. So I don't think $100,000 is much out of line for a minimum bid. And then I just provided some general information which you guys saw at the last council meeting on whether or not cities can sell land, how they have to get approval, who they can sell it to. The Planning Commission met last Monday and reviewed this. Since we have a comp plan, they have to review it for consistency with the plan. So we did review that, and there was a section, I think it was Chapter 8, Community Facilities, and basically said, build a new PD. So the Planning Commission reviewed it and motioned to recommend approval to sell the building because it is compliant with the city's comprehensive plan. Alternatives would be to not approve the proposed advertisement or make revisions to it, or not sell the property and determine another city use.
So the three items you listed there, that's gonna be the criteria for the sale? It won't-
Correct,
It won't
that's what-
strictly be price then, it'll be use and,
Yeah, that, I mean, based off of prior discussions, we had talked about rezoning it the way that the city wanted it, business residential, and the discussion was to just put it out for bids and let the market dictate what people wanted to use the building for. I would assume that any purchase agreement would probably be contingent upon approval of rezoning.
cause it has to be rezoned no matter what the use is now?
Correct, the current zoning is public facilities. So regardless of the use, it has to be rezoned.
I do think the minimum bid should be on there as well.
Right.
I know we talked about it, is there any issue with the setbacks and stuff like that? Does that need to be visited at all? That it's in the right of ways and all that, or is that just gonna?
It is in the right of way. It wouldn't meet the setback, so it would be a legal non-conforming use. So that
Okay.
is something that, according to our code, I guess I'd have to look at it again, but, legal non-conforming uses cannot be expanded, or they shouldn't be. So that may be another decision that the city council has to make as well.
Come on, put it out there for bids and see what comes back. See what the options are. See what we can get for it.
Is that a motion?
So move.
Motion by Councilman Kadada,
That's second.
second by Councilman Palat.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of a quote in the amount of $33,118.77 submitted by Midwest Machinery for a 2022 John Deere Gator. Mr. Dornfeld.
Thank you, Council, or Mayor and Council. The Maintenance Department has identified the need for a John Deere Gator. This UTV would be used for park maintenance, weed whipping, remote spraying of noxious weeds, trail maintenance, snow plowing of trails, parking lots, etc. Discussions were had at past budget meetings in September about budgeting for a Gator in 2023. Midwest Machinery in Northfield has one available immediately, and it is set up for municipal use, meaning all the proper wiring harnesses and accessories are on this machine to accommodate a snowplow, sprayer, and equipment like that. The price of a 2023 model versus the one they have now is expected about $2,500 more, and the 2022 is available now. Staff recommends purchasing the Gator now to have access to it and utilize it for this winter. The fiscal impact is there were no funds budgeted for this purchase in 2022. Therefore, funding would have to come from a liquor store transfer for immediate purchase, or pay it now and the city reimburses itself with proceeds from the equipment certificates that have been discussed as the preferred way to purchase upcoming equipment purchases such as our snowplow truck. Alternatives are to not purchase this Gator.
So this would be a purchase, unlike the tractor that we are looking at returning, that was a lease, correct?
Correct.
And those other items that the other mowers and stuff, those were gonna be a purchase also?
I believe
That
so
was
with
through
the equipment
Through the
bonds.
equipment bonds,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
You comment about the liquor store funds, I guess, is that an option? The liquor store committee have thoughts on that?
It would be an option, I guess we haven't discussed it, it was just, we kind of solidified this equipment on Monday, and the packet went out on Friday, so I just wanted to provide options of,
We're just borrowing it for
right.
a couple of months.
Yeah, and then speaking with Paul Donna about the equipment certificates, it's like the general obligation bonds that we issue for street projects. We always adopt a resolution that says we intend to reimburse ourselves, because you have, you know, engineering and all that soft costs prior to issuing the bonds. So as long as we adopt a resolution stating that we want to reimburse ourselves, this purchase could be included with those equipment certificates.
Well, I guess that's kind of my question. Do you want an actual donation from the liquor store to pay for it? Or do you want to try and do it through the bonds?
I guess ultimately I guess my recommendation would be the bonds.
Okay.
But if we want to transfer the 35,000, I mean, that would be, you know, interest-free. There hasn't been any transfers, I believe, approved this year from the liquor store. I know we were talking at the last budget meeting, 50,000 for improvements at DRS.
Do you want the liquor store committee to make the recommendation if we go that route, or can we just?
Oh, we can. We're gonna have a meeting on Tuesday.
I mean, that's probably the right protocol. I mean, I'm okay with it. I mean, if there's funds there, we might as well, you know, use it, but I guess whatever, you know, whatever the feeling of the committee, I guess.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda and discuss it for Tuesday night.
Sure.
Right. But that shouldn't prohibit us from
No.
moving forward with the quote.
Correct.
Right, right.
Is it still available?
It is still available.
Okay.
He's got everything sitting there, he's just waiting for the plow to show up. And once that comes, and I give him a call that we can get it, it's ours.
Does it have an estimated delivery date for the plow? Not that it ends up coming in spring and we're a little too
No,
late.
he said before snow, or before this winter season starts. And he said for peace of mind, he has a brand new straight blade sitting there should some act of God prohibit this plow from coming to us that we could put on there.
Because you're, I assume, a V-plow.
A V-plow,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
I assume these are comparable to like a Polaris side-by-side
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
This,
Yeah.
I think this one seems a little stronger, you know, maybe a little more utility than,
It's more of a workhorse.
yeah.
It is more set up for work than, say, a Polaris.
Okay.
I move we approve the purchase of the Gator
Motion by
with,
Council,
from Midwest Machinery.
motion by Councilperson Fuhrer, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Presentation on the Rice County Safe Roads Coalition / TZD program. Officer Jack Schleicher, Kathy Cooper, Jessica Schleck, and Nancy Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before I go into, okay.
All right, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thanks for allowing us some time on the agenda tonight. I have with me Jessica Schleck, Kathy Cooper, and Nancy Johnson, all from Southeast Minnesota TZD and Rice County Safe Roads Coalition. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the council and the mayor for your support with the TZD program. I know a couple of years ago I managed the grant for Rice County for 2 years, and with your support we did make some positive impacts on Minnesota roads in Rice County through enforcement, education, things of that nature. So as the program continues, it's always nice to kind of hear what happened and where the trends are. So Kathy asked if she could come out with Jessica and Nancy to present a little bit about the TZD program and Safe Roads Coalition. So, over to you three. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jessica Schleck. I'm the Southeast TZD Regional Coordinator. I've been the coordinator for about 10 years, but I've done traffic safety with Kathy and Nancy, actually, for 15-ish years. So we've been around for a while. So a little TZD history in case you haven't kept up on it, I guess. The statewide TZD program was launched in 2003 when traffic-related fatalities reached 655. So it was created by the Minnesota Departments of Public Safety, Transportation, and Health as a deliberate interdisciplinary approach to traffic safety. So it was realized that the goal of achieving 0 deaths would require building connections. Sorry. building connections between state agencies and local organizations. So also the TZD program is modeled after Sweden's Vision Zero program. So our vision is simple, to prevent fatalities and serious injuries on Minnesota roads to get to zero. The mission explains just how we'll do that, by collaborating. So the TZD program focuses on 4 strategic areas to reduce crashes, so enforcement, engineering, education and outreach, EMS, and of course that 5th E, which is everyone else, because everyone shares our roads. So when TZD began in 2003, we were seeing an increase in traffic-related fatalities. Like I said before, 655 people died on our roads in 2003 alone. So in 2019, that number was 364. It was a 44% decrease since we began our work. But preliminary numbers show that we saw 488 fatalities last year. You can see down there. The graph is very, But so we had come a long way. But then COVID hit. So what happened? Oops, too far. So what happened? We had a historic drop in vehicle miles traveled. Our overall crashes were down, but the severity crash rate was up, and we weren't alone in this increase. So the 488 traffic fatalities in 21 is a 25% increase over 2020 and a 37% increase from 2019. The 25% is the highest percentage increase from one year to the next since 1943 to 1944. And the 488 fatalities puts us at the highest number in more than 10 years. So last year, unbelted fatalities were up, motorcycle fatalities were up, and pedestrian fatalities were the highest they've been since 2016. When we look at factors that contribute to these fatal crashes, speeding continues to top our list. 2021 saw a shocking 162 speed-related fatalities, 33% increase from last year, and a 116% increase from 2019. So speed was a factor in at least a third of all fatal crashes in 2021. So everyone's noticed the speeds on our roadways. I'm sure you've all seen it and talked about it, but it really isn't our imagination. So in 2018, State Patrol issued 448 citations for speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour, but in 2021, that number more than tripled. So what are we doing about it? A speed and aggressive driving project kicked off January 1st of 2021, and it will run through the end of the year. So this is a statewide federally funded grant program that includes extra enforcement and education. So other short-term initiatives include more extra funding for enforcement, the drug impaired roadside testing pilot project, our work zone speed management study report, and of course education and outreach throughout the state. So one of our long-term goals includes transforming the traffic safety culture in Minnesota. So just a side note on traffic safety culture, it's the shared values, beliefs, norms, and attitudes that influence behavioral choices related to traffic safety. So to put this into perspective, if you believe most people don't speed, you're less likely to speed, if that makes sense. So behavior modification requires a change in the culture of roadway users, meaning it has to become unacceptable for people, or socially unacceptable for people to drive distracted or speed. So a good example of culture change is smoking. 20 years ago, you could smoke in a restaurant with your kids sitting next to you. Now it's socially unacceptable to smoke within 20 feet of a bar. So if they can do it, we can do it. So when it comes to traffic safety, culture just seems to be accepting that driving is just something that we happen to be doing. So how do we get people to understand the importance of safety over convenience? So another long-term goal that we're focusing on through TZD 2.0 is a safe systems approach. So the safe system approach can offer a safety net to protect people when those poor decisions are made. So just because somebody makes a bad choice doesn't mean that they or somebody else should be killed. So these are just a few of the things that we have been working on in the last couple years. So how can you get involved? So you can join the Rice County TZD Coalition. Kathy leads that and does a great job and has been doing it for quite some time. We have a Southeast TZD workshop that is Wednesday, May 3rd at the International Event Center in Rochester. So it is a free workshop, it is a free lunch, it's free parking, it's a great place to network with folks. So I strongly encourage that. We also have a statewide TZD conference coming up in a couple weeks in St. Cloud. So that's another great opportunity for you all to meet people, network, learn more about traffic safety and what's happening regionally at the workshop, obviously. But So also be a role model, you know, talk traffic safety with your friends, family, coworkers. It's important. Our goal for 2025 is 225 or fewer traffic-related fatalities and 980 or fewer serious injuries. So we need your help because working together we can get there. I will pass it to Kathy.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. I'm Kathy Cooper, as she mentioned. I'm the coordinator for the Rice County Safe Roads Coalition. And I've been the coordinator for 16 years, I think. I do have a packet for each of you with some additional information. Mainly, I wanted you to have a copy of the 2022 crash facts to date. But there's also a 5-year crash report in there that you see on the screen, 2016 to 2020. 2021 crash data is still preliminary, and then of course, as I mentioned, 2022 is year to date. So a little bit, before I get into the crash stats, just about our Safe Roads Coalition in Rice County. We started in 2006 in Northfield. The Northfield Healthy Community Initiative actually wrote the grant with the Northfield Hospital and started the coalition, put the members' organizations together. And then the next year they received a grant and they contracted out for the coordinator, and I was hired, and I've been the coordinator ever since. And every year we have to write that grant again to the state of Minnesota, requesting funds, telling them, you know, what we plan to do, and we base it all on statistics. And the state has, you know, requirements in the request for proposals. Excuse me. Some things are required, like, you know, meeting. Well, when we started out, we met monthly. Now we're down to bi-monthly. You must have a fatal review committee. And that's where the crash facts are coming out of, is our Rice County Fatal Review Committee. We review every fatal crash in Rice County, and we try to do as many of the serious injuries as possible. We don't review them, you know, looking to blame somebody. We review them to try and understand what happened. Why did this crash happen? And what can we do, if anything, to educate the public about why it happened so that it doesn't happen anymore? You know, our goal is towards zero death. But a lot of our work is educating the public on what has happened and how to avoid getting into that situation yourself, preventing those future crashes. So in the beginning, I didn't go all the way back to 2006 in the stats. This is just a 5-year report. But, you know, when I started, Rice County was around 12 fatalities a year, and over 50% of them were alcohol related. And you'll see the numbers up there. In 2016, we were at 6. 2018 and 2019 were both 2 fatalities each year. 2 is still too many, but look at what happened that first year of COVID, 2020. We jumped to 10 fatalities in Rice County. And this happened all across the state of Minnesota. Jessica mentioned how the severity of the crashes went up. We were just devastated. 10 fatalities in Rice County. All those years of work just seemed to disappear. One of the media events that we participated in was a regional event that Jessica arranged with the 11 southeast Minnesota counties. We each, it was called Empty Chairs or Heartbeats. And so each county had to put out the number of empty chairs to signify the number of fatals in their county. And in Rice County, at the time we did it, we were at 8. I think it was done in October or November, before the upcoming holidays. And we went out to, the sheriff took us out to Valley Grove Church Cemetery. And we set up 8 empty chairs. And that was our photo submission. And that PSA, that video PSA, is still around. We still play it. You'll see it periodically, and now I wish I would have brought it so that I could show it to you. Has anyone seen it by any chance? Okay. It's been, on Facebook, of course, and in other social media with the newspapers. So I'll see if I can send it to Joel, and maybe he can send it out to the council. It's pretty impactful. And like I said, we were just, devastated with 10 fatalities. So 2021, the number did come down to 5. And now, year-to-date in 2022, we're at 3. And still, 3 too many. We also have 12 year-to-date serious injury crashes. And one of the things that we have noticed in looking at the current year crashes is one of the 3 fatals was a motorcycle. 7 of the 12 serious injury were motorcycle. So that means 8 out of the 15 were motorcycle crashes, and that is very concerning. That's a high number. That's over 50%. So the year before, however, was even worse. And so when we wrote the grant this year, we write the grant in June and July. We actually wrote in that for an optional activity, we wanted to work on motorcycle education and safety. So we're in a position to spend some time and spend some of our resources on that. We have done some things with the Faribault Harley-Davidson shop in the past, and also Kim Radio out of Northfield in the past has done some pretty impactful PSAs. Terry Knight, she's no longer there, but I'm hoping we can get Jeff Johnson to do something for us. But education, the recommendation, strong recommendation that no matter how many years you've been riding your motorcycle, take a refresher course, take an advanced riding course. And some people do it every year. It might save your life. So some of the other things that, well, here's the fatal crash, 3, and you'll see all the different categories. We look at the 4 top issues for crashes: speeding, distracted, alcohol, and seatbelt use. And so you'll see that across there. Also some notes. So that was really a very long chart. We had to split it in 2. Also this year, this is kind of odd, there were 3 other fatal crashes that are not being counted because of the way the rules and regulations are at the state and DPS for traffic crashes. One was a bicyclist in Northfield that died after 30 days past the date of the crash, so those aren't counted. It's still a fatal bike crash. Gotta remember down here. There was a pickup fatal crash in Northfield as well, and that was determined to be a medical. So that won't be counted. And what was the other one? Pardon? No. Well, is that the ATV?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you'll see there the driver was killed. So those 3 are not being counted at this point in the fatal crash facts that will come out from the state of Minnesota. But they did provide us with this information because they felt it was important to the Fatal Review Committee that we should still look at it. 2 bicycle crashes, one that's not counted and one that is, in 1 year is high for Rice County. And then this is the list of serious injury crashes, and there again, it was a very long spreadsheet, so we broke it down into 2 parts, but you can see all the different kind of information that we look at. And I made copies of all these data sheets for you, so that's in your packet, so if there's anything you want to check up. But the Fatal Review Committee, we don't review a crash until the investigation is complete. So none of the 2022 have been reviewed yet. However, we do have a Fatal Review Committee tomorrow, so we'll be looking at some of them. And we like to review them as soon as we can after they happen. And at the Fatal Review Committee, we try to have all the parties that would have been involved in that crash. So the EMS, law enforcement, obviously. The county attorney comes, he's sometimes involved with charging, of course. The hospital, public health will attend as well. And so anyhow, and then we try to get that information out to the public without identifying, of course, the victims. We keep that information as confidential as we can. But at the end of the year, we do publish our information, not just the totals in each category, but we keep track of which law enforcement agency. And as can be expected, Rice County Sheriff's Office usually has the majority, and then it filters down by the population of the city for the most part. I don't think you'll see any crashes here for Lonsdale for 2022. Although Jack did tell me there was a crash last night, is that what you said?
No, it was loud, it wasn't a serious injury.
Yeah, just a crash. So the number of crashes every year in Rice County, total crashes, injury and non-injury runs a little over 700. So that's 2 crashes a day. That's usually what I tell folks. Rice County has 2 crashes a day. And here's some more information. We did a 10-year report on motorcycle crash facts, and you'll see that 2021 was a bad year. We had a total of 27 for killed, injured, and not injured. Look at the injured number, 24. So that's a pretty high number in comparison to previous years. Well, it's the highest in 10 years. And since this report was done, this data is year-to-date to August 15th. There's been 3 more serious that I know of that the sheriff has sent to me. So that's all I have on crash data, and just a little brief information about the coalition. Does anyone have any questions or anything? We wouldn't have Nancy Johnson wants to come up and just say a few words. Just go. Thank you, Nancy.
Hi. I know some of you, as I've been involved in this issue for a long time. My husband and I moved out to Lonsdale when there was only 500 people back in 1968. And we bought a place out in the country, and safety and everything. And we didn't come out to farm, but we ended up after a couple of years starting to farm, and we did farm for a long time, mostly livestock. I had 2 children, and you're kind of in this, you feel that you are pretty safe out in the country, and so that ended for us in 1984. when my 18-year-old daughter was coming home from a date, and she was killed 3 miles from home on Highway 19 by a drunk 19-year-old. That was when the alcohol, the age was 19, not 21 after. That kind of turned our whole life upside down. And, you know, like, you never think it's gonna happen to you, but it can, and it happened to us. And it can happen to us more than once. It changed my life, and as many of you know, I've been working on this issue for the last 38 years, and as a volunteer. And I've seen so much changes in those years. You know, back in '84, before that, you know, drunk driving was just kind of a joke, you know, and kind of a, you know, I've got DWI, it was a big deal. Well, that changed, and over the years, it's done a lot of changing. I started the Rice Scott Mad chapter, and we met in Lonsdale. It was kind of nice to be able to meet in your own town instead of going someplace else. And we did a lot in the communities, both in Rice and Scott County. In 2000, we had gotten some friends of mine that were in other chapters. We started Minnesotans for Safe Driving because there were more people that were calling and saying, you know, ours wasn't drunk driving, it was distracted driving or speeding or aggressive driving. And they didn't have anybody to kind of help them out. We did a lot of stuff in the courts. And so we were working on that. But I've been happy to see the changes that have happened in the towns. I mean, I'm very happy with the support that the council has with the police department here, and they're picking up DWIs, and they're really doing a lot of good work. The different things that have changed more recently is distracted driving. When the smartphones came out where you could do just about everything on your phone, people kind of thought, I can drive, and I can do my phone, I can, you know, look at things, I can text, I can talk to people, I can, you know, it's amazing some of the stuff they're doing. And we're having a number of people were being killed because they weren't watching where they were going. Or they were killing themselves, they got off the road. So that was one of the big issues, because you know, you kind of found drunk driving was, you know, up until very recently, the last couple of years, but drunk driving was kind of, you know, pretty leveled off. It was, you know, when Tina was killed, half of the fatalities were drunk driving, and before recent, it was down to a third, which is still a lot, but it was, people had changed, lots of different changes in what people have done. Designated drivers, you know, safe way home, you know, people would think about it, they didn't want to go out and have that happen. But then this problem with distracted driving and the phones. And we did get passed in 2019 a hands-free law where it says you cannot hold your phone while you're driving. You know, you're not, mainly so that you can't text or you can't do all those other things. And I think that has been helpful, but unfortunately, people are still going back to do it. And that's certainly not what we want them to do, because it can happen to any of us. I mean, that's one of the things that is so scary. And the reason I've kept doing this for all these years is because I did not want another one of my family, my loved ones, to be in a crash, and I did not do everything I could possibly do to stop that. And I hope that all the years that I've put into bringing forth this issue and getting involved in TZD, and, you know, there's so many things that are being done, because back when I started, MAD was about the only thing that was doing anything about drunk driving and traffic crashes. So I'm happy to see that a lot of things have changed, but we still need the cities and the counties to continue to realize that this is an important issue, and we want you to stay behind it, behind your police department, so that, you know, that they pick up people who are violating the law, whether they're from Lonsdale or from someplace else, because that was one of the problems way back when. So I'm very happy with what Tim, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm really happy with how things have changed over all these years. So thank you, and hope you keep supporting the issue and TZD and everything else. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for your work. It's a really, really commendable job. You know, it's really good work you do. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Very good. Okay. To consider approval of resolution 2022-44, a resolution setting the fiscal year 2023 preliminary budget and property tax levy. Mr. Erickson.
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The city council held 7 meetings to discuss the preliminary 2022 or 2023 budget and property tax levy and its impact. I won't go through every single expense. Like I said, we went through it 7 times, but did want to include it, and we'll hit the high points. Council revenues, property tax levy, and wages are based off of the salaries that went into effect this year. Other expenses would be any equipment for the sound system or attendance at the chamber annual dinner. As far as administration, the main revenues are property tax levy, business license and permits, and then LGA or local government aid. Expenses, and most of these are consistent throughout. Wages are based on 5.3% increase and getting some employees' wages to market over a 3-year period. That was discussed at the last council meeting. And then also it was implemented is updating our pay scale with a, I don't want to call it minimum wage, but minimum starting wage. Currently it's $14.42 an hour. That's proposed to increase to $16.06 an hour. Health insurance increased between 1.5 and 8.07%, depending on which plan the employee selects.
Not to interrupt you, but maybe since there's been some discussion about the library staff wages, maybe you could clarify the amount of increase that the library staff is going to receive.
Sure. Yeah, the only change that I made since when did we meet, September 12th, was incorporating, and the library director was one of the employees that is paid below the market. So that was the only change that was made. It was to change it to 3-year incremental increase. But typical employees are getting a 5.3% increase, and increases in the library range from 7.62% up to 11.37%. So, and again, no changes were made except the direction that was given at the last meeting to go over a 3-year period.
Right, so I think that matches pretty close to the proposal from the department, so, good.
Close.
Close, okay.
Training, education, conference, and Safe Assure. Professional services, that's where we pay for mosquito control, financial reporting. We've got annual disclosures on some of our bond payments. Rice County Services, we get charged for truth and taxation notices, which this discussion will be based, those will be based off of this discussion. And then also special assessments. 60% of the year-end audit. Property insurance, it's based on historical, and I'm projecting 10% increase. Dues and subscriptions would be our membership to the League of Minnesota Cities, fund accounting and payroll, software support, the website. Planning and zoning, revenues would be property tax levy. The main one is building permits, and then LGA and charges for services. Again, wages, repairs and maintenance would be for the vehicle. Engineering is general, maybe some typical planning, but building permit review, and then did budget, since we continue to work on Highway 19 with MnDOT, some funds for that. Inspection fees, historically they've ran at 53% of building permit revenues. And then a portion of that would go to the building inspector and then the city. Dues and subscriptions would be Data Link, which is our GIS with WSB. We have GIS, and then Adobe. And then refunds would be any return of any unused landscape or land use permit escrows. They range from $750 to $2,500, and whatever is not used by the city for legal, any outside consulting services, would be that amount which is returned. Police revenues, property tax levy, LGA, police aid, fines, and training reimbursement. Again, wages, training would be Safe Assure and officer training. Professional services would be copier, the drug task force, any fees that we pay to Rice County, the BCA, and then miscellaneous connection fees to their programs. Legal, we contract criminal with the Rice County Attorney's Office, and we do budget some funds for any civil matters that that we have to deal with. Utilities are based on an estimate of the new building. Uniforms are per the collective bargaining agreement. Capital outlay equipment would be $25,000 budgeted to replace the 2018 squad in 2024. So we budgeted another $25,000 and then make the full $50,000 or whatever that expense is next year. So next year, the police would anticipate to run a deficit because we saved money this year and we'll pay it out next year. Then other capital outlay would be the purchase of a AED next year, and then budgeting $15,000 for 3 years to replace 800 megahertz radios so that we get ones that are able to be encrypted. Police reserves, no budgeted revenues or expenses. Forfeitures are just estimated revenues and expenses. Another item that we had lots of discussion on during the budget meeting was the American Rescue Plan. We received just over $452,000. We have spent about $30,000, leaving a balance of about $420,000. Those funds were received, half of it was received in 2021, the other half in 2022, so there will not be any revenues in 23. So again, any expenses would show a deficit, but the funds were already received in prior years. Proposed expenses, City Hall parking lot, windows, furnace. We talked about a new accounting software, skate park materials, and then $30,000 for the rapid rectangular flashing beacons as part of the County Road 4 project. Digging into that a little bit more and meeting with the county and in engineering, that might be a little light, so we'll have to evaluate that and see what options there are as far as the design, whether it's solar, motion activated or push button, things like that. They all play into the costs. Small cities grant, not expecting any revenues. The only revenues that we would receive is if someone sold their house before living there for 10 years. The council in the past has required that a prorated reimbursement be repaid. So if they lived there for 5 years, they have to pay 5 back. If they lived there for 7, 3, just whatever the balance of the 10 years is, they've had to pay back. And then any expenses would just be any potential owner-occupied housing or commercial rehab projects. EDA has requested $40,000 from the property tax levy. In prior years, in 09 and 19, $50,000 was allocated each of those years. The only other revenue would be the Pet Stop Veterinary Clinic's revolving loan fund payment. Again, you got wages, attendance at the chamber annual dinner. The EDA is working on advertising, and then funds for the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation and the Rice County Small Business Development Center. Funds were also allocated for business retention and expansion and general purpose. The library revenues are the property tax levy, Rice County grant, that's usually around $23,000. User fees, and then any donations from the Friends of the Library. Expenses, wages, training and education would be Safe Assure and attendance at the Minnesota Library Conference. Professional services consist of, again, copier, the villages of Lonsdale, that's where we pay our prorated percentage of the expenses for the villages per our lease agreement. Selco, cleaning. Dues and subscriptions would be collection materials, newspapers, magazines. We lease the computers through Selco. Capital outlay, furniture for story time, and then just adding to the collection. Debt services are the 300 accounts. All debt service accounts have been accounted for. Some of the projects are paid 100% from the 300, others are proportionate out of water and sewer and the debt service. Most of the debt service funds are not budgeted at 105%. Reason being is we've had prepayment of special assessments. As you saw in the treasurer's report, some of those debt service accounts have several $100,000 in them. And I think last year was the first year that Rice County required us to put this in our notice that we're acknowledging that we're not levying 105%. Again, that's because of special assessments, and the thought of the council was to say the people that prepaid their assessments shouldn't get taxed again for it. So we're drawing that down, so at the end of that last payment, it's virtually zero. The next debt service to get paid off would be the 2012, which were refinanced to the 2021 C bonds. They'll be paid off in February of '28, and the amount of the levy that's allocated to that debt service is $60,000 this year. Looking at my notes, because there's a fund balance, it actually should be closer to 75. So it does help to have that fund balance, and allows the city to reallocate that levy to other uses. Park and Rec, again, property tax levy, we do get about $5,300 from the DNR for the Snow Wizards grant. All franchise fees and cell tower rent goes to Parks and Rec. Proposed transfers of about $217,000, $50,000 from the liquor store to fund the DRS improvements, and then $167,000 from Road and Bridge. That is the 2 years of the $83,000 that we budgeted for the 2024 snowplow. Again, as we talked about with the Gator, the council has agreed to issue equipment certificates. And if you remember when Paul Don was here, there's really not many ways that we can bond for trail repairs. So it was free up cash, and that we had saved up for equipment to purchase. You use that cash to pay for the trails and finance the equipment. Expenses will be wages, again, training and education, Safe Assure and tree school, repairs and maintenance is just general. In talking with staff, the fishing pier needs a little maintenance and field paint. Landscaping would be the Main Street flowers, and then just general landscaping, whether it's the welcome signs or park signs, just landscaping in general in the parks. Professional services would be the compost site activities, the grinding and hauling of the brush pile, tree removal, copier. Rentals would be the porta potties and any equipment that we need, whether it's brush hog or skid steer, whatever. There's a couple $1,000s budgeted for that. Trails is proposed at $400,000 for trail maintenance. Did include the city's 2021 trail condition map. We try to get as much of the red areas done as we can, with the exception of the Willow Creek trails we have discussed in the past. Capital outlay would be the lease payment on a proposed 11-foot mower. That would replace the John Deere tractor and the 15-foot pull-behind mower deck. Purchase of a zero-turn lawnmower, I think it was like $8,000 or $9,000 that we would pay, less the trade-in of our John Deere 1575 mower. And then we talked about capital outlay, DRS improvements, and then at the last several budget meetings, there was discussion about cold storage facility, and this is something that we should talk about. Doesn't have to be at this meeting, but we had talked about issuing bonds for that as well. The more we talk about it, maybe it makes sense to kind of finance it like we did the liquor store. We'll save on the bond council, the financing. We can come up with an amount for interest. So there's some payback, I guess. That's certainly be the cheapest and quickest way to finance that. The city definitely has the fund balance to do that, whether it's over a 5-year, 6-year period. So that wouldn't have to be all that long. The 400s are our project funds, so that would be any street project or the PD, for example, that we haven't made the final payment on. Once the final payment's made, whatever fund balance, positive or negative, is transferred to the 300 debt service fund. So it's anticipated that for 23, the PD facility will go to the debt service. Well, we had to set up one anyway because of when our debt service was due. The 21 Street project would be in that category as well. The next couple of departments are enterprise funds, water, plumbing connection fees is based off of 15 homes. That's actually how many single-family homes we've issued so far to date. Staff did apply for it and was successful in receiving a $10,000 grant to seal well 3. So we're anticipating receiving that. I believe it's October 31st of 23 it needs to be done. Maybe it's 24, but yeah. It's a pretty quick turnaround, so it's anticipated that work will get bid out and completed next summer. Grant, or refunds and reimbursements is just general and any insurance claims that we have. Water sales is based off of historical data. Water meter sales is just half the price of, or half the cost of water meters, it goes 50/50 water sewer. And then late fees have historically ran about 2.5% of water sales. Again, expenses, wages, you got training, Safe Assure, and water classes. Chemicals are for treatment and grounds. Repairs and maintenance, $30,000 for general, $15,000 for water main breaks, $2,500 for hydrant maintenance, and then $80,000 for sealing the well. I believe the bids that we received are around $90,000. Professional service would be locates, PSN, flow meter testing. Dues and subscriptions would be computer software support. Capital outlay, equipment would be half the cost of water meters and MXUs. And then capital outlay structure, we're recommending that the cost be broken down between the 4 public works departments. 37.5%, both for road and bridge and parks to get to 75, and then 12.5, respectively for water and sewer. Debt service accounts for all the debt service, principal, interest, and transfers associated with any water improvements. Sewer is very similar to the water, based off of 15 new homes for the plumbing connections. Charges for services would be utility inspections. Again, refunds and reimbursements would be insurance claims. Sewer sales is based off of historical data, and similar to water, late fees run about 2.5%. Expenses, again, wages, training, Safe Assure, sewer classes, again, chemicals or treatments and ground. Repairs and maintenance, $20,000 for manhole sealing and then general. Professional services would be hauling and applying to biosolids. PSN, that would be Payment Service Network, who we use to, our online vendor for online payments for water and sewer. Locates, sewer cleaning and televising. Capital outlay, again, half the cost of water meters and MXUs. 12.5% of the cost of a lease payment of a proposed cold storage facility, and then all debt service funds are accounted for. Liquor, our main revenue, no secret, beer, liquor, and wine. Again, based off of historical data and the recent gross profit margins that we're receiving. Other merchandise, and then lottery. Expenses, wages, again, probably 80% of our expenses are cost of goods, beer, liquor, and wine. Professional services will be security, pest control, linens, IT, and floor cleaning. Dues and subscriptions would be membership to the chamber, the Minnesota Municipal Beverage Association, and then the software support for the point of sale system that they run down there. And then $50,000 transfer to the parks for the DRS improvements. Road and bridge, property tax levy, LGA, and then snow removal, refunds and reimbursements. Wages, and then a lot of the discussion at the last budget meeting was talked about street maintenance, $125 for mill and overlay, no crack fills proposed for '23, and then just our annual catch basin repairs, crosswalks, sidewalks, and patching. Professional services would be DOT inspections, copier, IT, Emerald Dashboard services that has been identified, so we're going to have to address that. Engineering is general, data link, and then surveying. Capital outlay would be $30,000 estimated for the annual debt service of the equipment certificates to be used to finance the new plow truck. As I said before, 37.5% of a payment on cold storage, and then snow and ice removal historically runs about $30,000 a year. The landscape escrow, like I said before, is just charging a building permit that once the turf is established and the required trees are installed, is returned, and then that's just based off of the 15 homes that we have issued permits for this year. The last department is the fire department, and you guys already approved this back in February. So wrapping up here, by approving the proposed resolution, the council is acknowledging that 105% is not being levied for the debt service funds. That discussion and input on the city's 2023 budget and property tax levy will be on the agenda at the December 8th, 2022 City Council meeting at 7 p.m. Providing the contact information for questions on our information, and then directing the administrator to send a copy to Rice County. The fiscal impact, obviously all decisions pertaining to the city's budget have a fiscal impact. To balance the proposed budget, a property tax levy of $2,875,000 is needed. That will provide an additional $430,000 in funding. The tax rate is being reduced from 56.4 to 54.48, which is a reduction of 3.4%. And if you look historically back to 2017, that tax levy is actually decreased by more than 23%. The fiscal impact on some of the residential properties that we've tracked over the years ranges from $2 to over $300. Since then, again, with looking historically, since 2017, those same properties, their taxes have increased between $77 and $384. The fiscal impact of the businesses that we have tracked over the years, their change in property taxes ranges from a decrease of $712 to an increase of $353. And again, looking historically since 2017, the businesses that we have been tracking have seen their taxes decrease between $355 and just over $1,200. The alternatives would be to not approve the proposed preliminary budget and property tax levy as presented and change to a different tax levy amount, which then would obviously change the budget. And then attachments are the proposed line item budget, as I said, the trail condition map, our pavement condition rating, which was the basis for proposed street repairs for next year, the preliminary property tax levy impact, and then proposed resolution 2022-44. That was a lot of information quick, maybe not quick enough, but if you guys have any questions, I'd be certainly happy to answer them.
Any questions? I just want to, thank the staff and everybody for all your work on this. And City Council, we've had 7-some meetings and put a lot of effort into all the expenditures and revenues. And especially thank you, Joe, for all your work. I know it's really time-consuming and detailed. And I think, obviously with inflation and, a growing city, there's a lot of expenses and we need a lot of revenue. But, I think, and we've said this before in the past, that I think it's one thing to spend taxpayer money, but when you see that, all the good things we're doing, the improvements, the equipment, all those kind of things, I think it's certainly justifiable. I think we're doing a pretty good job here, actually.
I think we went through each department, fine-tooth comb, honestly.
Right.
Throughout the meetings. So I move we approve resolution 2022-44.
Motion by Councilman Kadada.
Second.
Second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, Mr. Erickson, for all your work. Appreciate it.
I just want to thank the staff, they helped out as well, so.
Consider approval of Resolution 2022-45, a resolution approving an energy assistance program agreement between the City of Lonsdale and the Minnesota Commerce Department. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. This is the second year that this is being presented to the council. With COVID, last year was the first year that there was funding available for assistance to pay water and sewer bills. In the past, it was just strictly gas and power. In order for residents of Lonsdale to receive any assistance that they may need, the city does have to enter into this agreement. Register with the state, which we already did last year. By approving the agreement, we're agreeing to treat eligible households the same as other households, supply account info for the eligible households to, I guess in this case it would be Three Rivers, that's who we work with. Provide required information timely, apply the payments within 5 days, limit access only to authorized staff. Like I said earlier, last year is expected to be a kind of a one and done. Since we're going on to year 2, I'm guessing that this is going to be a every year thing for the foreseeable future. By approving the proposed resolution, the council is entering into the proposed agreement and then authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to sign the agreement. The fiscal impact, I guess, last year, or last season, we received over $8,500, or the residents did, in assistance to pay their water and sewer bills, so probably is worth adopting a resolution and going online and checking a box and, you know, provide another option for residents that are in need, so. I guess unless there's any questions, staff would recommend approval of resolution 2022-45.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2022-45.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Palava, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of resolution 2022-46, a resolution to contract with a council member. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So we were made aware that the city of St. Louis, or not St. Louis Park, Shakopee, excuse me, was advertising for bid their skate park equipment. We did bid on it, and as we all know that we were the successful bidder. Bids were due, I believe, 2:30 on July 6th, and the equipment had to be removed by July 15th. Upon being notified that we were the successful bidder, staff did reach out to multiple companies that were capable of providing this service, and we either did not receive a bid or were told that they weren't available to transport the equipment. So at the end of the day on Friday, we had to make a decision. We did contact Root Construction to do it. They were available as a last resort. As we all know, anytime we contract with the council member, it has to be approved prior to, or if it's after the fact, in the case of emergency, identifying or stating the facts of the situation. Those are included in the resolution. To contract with a council member, the following must happen. The council member has to abstain from vote on the matter, invoice approved by unanimous vote, and approve a resolution setting out the essential facts. We did receive the conflict of interest, which is required to be signed for contracting with the city before any payments can be made. The cost of these services also needs to be as low or lower than. The invoice was for $3,515, which according to the affidavit is lower than the what we could have reasonably obtained it from another company. And the fiscal impact, obviously the cost of the invoice about $3,500, and the funds that will be used to pay this are the American Rescue Plan Act, which will be used to fund, have been used to fund the skate park, and will be used to fund the repair of the equipment and then surface.
I think it was a very generous price that was given for this, and well worth the money. Appreciate basically the break, I guess. With that, we approve resolution 2022-46.
Second. Motion by Councilman Kadada, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain. Motion carries. Consider approval of a job description for the position of Public Works Director. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Well, with the resignation of the past Public Works Director, the next step in the process is to fill the position. Anytime that we advertise a position, we look at the job description and make sure that it's current and up to date in what we are looking for. I did use the current job description as the start. Some of the revisions, the approval date, the position summary, added language on long-term planning of infrastructure, overall responsibility of water, wastewater, removed assistant meter reading, added language of working with others on private development, responsible for administration of the city's right-of-way, oversee the department's training program, attend professional development courses, respond to concerns, issues, complaints from the public staff, mediate disputes. I am proposing to reduce the amount of time to obtain a Class B CDL from 60 to 30 days. I think in our desired requirements, it's already obtained. And then, since I changed it from 60 to 30, just removed ability to obtain in the desired, just this is what we want. Subsequent to this going out, a couple other recommended changes would be looking at other job descriptions and job postings. I did include, specific to the Class B CDL, include a manual transmission, air brake, and taker endorsement. And then I believe what went into the council packet was 7 years of desired experience. I'm recommending 10. Also, another thing that we've been putting in job descriptions is the FMLA status, Family Medical Leave Act, exempt or non-exempt. That's probably something that the city council should discuss tonight. If you want this position exempt from overtime, which would be salaried, or non-exempt, which would be hourly.
I mean, it's salary.
I think that's the direction to go.
Pretty quick review, but if you guys have any questions, I'd certainly be
Okay, you got that note then? Salary.
willing to answer them.
Anybody else have comments or concerns, questions?
Looks pretty good.
Make a motion to approve job description with those updates for Public Works Director.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second?
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to authorize staff to advertise the job posting for Public Works Director. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Well, with the job description revisions approved, next step would be to discuss filling the position. Typically, we have advertised positions to be filled. That is what is recommended in this situation as well. This is one of those positions that was paid below the market, one of them quite substantially, I would say. I am looking or recommending a starting wage at step 15, and the wage range for that is $41.93 to $66.76. I would anticipate a starting salary closer to step 1, obviously depending on qualifications. The proposed timeline would be approval of it tonight. Applications would be due October 21st. Quick turnaround, review applications the 24th, conduct interview, or the week of the 24th. Conduct interviews the week of October 31st. Our next meeting after that would be November 10th, and hopefully the employee could begin in December. I do anticipate advertising on the city's website, Facebook. I don't know if that gets much traction for this type of a position. Definitely the league's website and Minnesota Rural Water. I looked at their website on Friday, and they had a couple Public Works Director positions posted there. So to me, that would seem to be the two places that, quite frankly, anyone in Public Works would go to look for another municipal job. If we did want to advertise it in the local papers, I'm anticipating about $1,500. Alternatives would be to not advertise, or not authorize staff to advertise the position, which would just result in taking longer to fill that position. Or another option would be to promote from within and determine a wage based on experience.
I do think, given the circumstances of the road that got us here, I do think we should definitely go for interviews. That's my thought.
I agree.
Okay.
Move we approve advertising for Public Works Director.
Motion by Councilperson Fear,
Second.
second by Councilman Kadada. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I do want to say that, Mr. Dornfeld, I think you've been doing an excellent job, quite honestly. I think I like your presentations to the council. They're pretty professional for somebody that's just kind of thrown into that position, so certainly hope you apply for the position.
Thank you.
On to consider approval of a job description for the position of Community Development Planner. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Well, our city planner resigned at the end of July was his last day. Bear with me while I get here. We didn't receive much interest in the position up to this point. Discussions that have been held are trying to figure out a way to make it more attractive, maybe get more interest in the position. Discussions that were held were adding more job responsibilities to the position, which would result in a higher wage and hopefully more interest. Just a quick summary is that the proposed position will oversee planning and zoning, building inspections, economic development, elections, assist with community and economic development, oversee, prepare, execute short and long-term goals in the community development programs, documents and elections, act as a zoning administrator, continue to provide assistance and support to the Planning Commission and Park Board, would be involved in Economic Development Authority and other boards as necessary. Also manage the city's website and social media. We've had numerous conversations on that. Then also ensure compliance with applicable sections of the city code and enforcement. Direct, evaluate, manage community development, which, with the exception of economic development, was pretty much happening. It was the ongoing practice. Coordinate activities of the Park and Rec Commission. Again, manage the city's website, social media. Assist in economic development, coordinate the activities of the Planning Commission, Park Board, EDA. Enforcement of the city code. Coordinate, participate in building permit review, approval and issuance, serve as election coordinator, complete reports as necessary, and then the catch-all that was joked about at safety training today, perform all duties as assigned. Whatever. All kidding aside, essentially it's the same job description with some additional responsibilities in inspections, economic development, elections, and administrative duties. Minimum requirements would be a bachelor's degree in urban studies or planning, 5 years experience. Desired would be a master's degree in urban studies or closely related field, 10 years experience. The fiscal impact will be the wage and benefits acceptable to the city council and the employee. It is not expected that the cost would be more than if the previous city planner would have remained here. And then included is the proposed job description.
The question I have, the title, I guess I was looking around, I haven't seen a community development planner, but I've seen director listed. Did you go with that name specifically for a reason, or?
I did see community development planner out there, just kind of, cause you got community development is kind of a, broad brush approach to planning, inspections, economic development. So kind of, more than just, I'm reviewing setbacks, I'm writing staff reports for variances. But you are right, the majority of them are director.
Okay.
So we'll just add it, so what is the difference, or should we be director, or what's the difference?
Well, community development director would be say we had one more staff year.
Okay.
It's just, basically it's a one-man shop, right? That's basically what we have.
I think director would maybe lead people to think that there's under them.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I mean,
I see.
basically, you know,
I see. Okay.
yeah, you are working with, you know, the city engineer or the building inspector, but there's no, you know, employees directly underneath you that you would, you know, direct their day-to-day.
Okay.
Okay, do you like the description?
I move we approve the description.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Kadada, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to authorize staff to advertise the job posting for the community development planner. Mr. Erickson?
Right, well, with the job description just approved, staff's looking for approval to advertise the position. Coincidentally, the dates are the same as the previous position we just talked about, for no other reason than it's getting approved today and we need to get the positions filled. So, getting approved tonight and ideally have someone on board in December. Again, the same places I would advertise it would be the city's website and the league's website. Again, those would be the league would definitely be the go-to place for anyone in local government looking for a job. Proposing a wage on step, or grade, excuse me, 15. That starting wage is $38.11. And ideally, we would get someone at that step 1 or 2.
Is that close to market, do you feel?
Yes.
Question for you, Joel. With bringing this person on, say, in December, and here's their wage, do they then in January get a new wage, or are we gonna we're gonna plan forward?
Yep, I think we're capable enough now where we don't, well, all new employees have anniversary dates, and it's their start date.
Okay,
That's the way it used to be, and it was not working out, so we had to change everyone to January 1st. But I think we're capable now of, and have been for the last several employees, that their anniversary date is their hire date, or their start date. So they would not get an increase until, for 12 months.
okay. Well, I move we approve advertising for the community development planner.
Motion by Councilperson Fear.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the planned agenda. On to department reports. Mr. Dornfeld.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Public Works, since we last met, we've been assisting WSB with some walkthroughs on this year's project, and then doing a couple of 2-year warranty checks on a tiling job on Industrial Drive, a mill and overlay on 10th Avenue Northwest, and looking over the hockey arena. All 3 areas look really good. I talked to Nick about it the other day to sign off on them. We redid the landscaping at the liquor store. We pulled out all the old edging, gave her all new grasses, discussed all that planning with Lynette, new rock, spice it up a little bit there. She got 2 new trees. There was one that died and the other one was just too much of a dwarf to really do any maintenance around, so we just yanked that one out and put a new one in. We also filled in trees on Idaho Street and Fig Street where they had died, and we planted trees at Trichka Park, and we planted some ground cover on the north side of the hockey rink where the grade is very steep and unmaintainable. Moving forward, we have gone into blacktop mode, so we are doing what we can to raise some of these manholes that are really sunk into the street. Some of them require more attention than others. We have to add rings to some. Some we can just do with our tar heater and remove it and just regrade it. And we are working with an arborist, staff it's going to come and meet with us on Thursday to help us put together a plan for this emerald ash borer. Where we should go, how we should do it, tips for funding, newspaper articles, things like that. So,
Good. Thank you for all your work, sir. Mr. Nick?
Yeah, excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. A few updates on construction projects. This year's street improvement project is now substantially complete. Things are looking really good out there. As Joe mentioned, we did a walkthrough with Joe and the contractor. There's a few punch list items still yet to complete, probably more like 20. Most of them are minor, but they are letting us know within a couple weeks. We expect all that stuff to be done, and then we'll have final paving here next year, June of 23. Other things is the trail and Fig is now complete. We'll have final payment on that probably at the next meeting. And then we did complete that 3rd Avenue drain tile work that was part of last year's project. So Tim Strucking did complete that work a couple weeks ago. That concludes staff's report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir, for all your work. Appreciate it. Mr. Erickson?
Well, went over most of the things I was working on during this council. Submit the levy to Rice County before the deadline. Be working with the Park Board and Planning Commission on some items. Some more election training, and then be working on delinquent accounts. We've got that public hearing coming up October 24th meeting.
Thank you for all your work. How's the new staff person working out pretty good?
Yes.
Done a good job?
Yep, it was fitting in well and doing a good job.
Good.
Catching on quick, so
Good.
nice.
Good deal. Councilman Webb?
The liquor store doesn't meet until next week, so we're going in for the library we already talked about, so we're all good.
Good. Thank you, sir. Councilman Kadada?
We had a park board and a planning board meeting last Monday. Park board, we discussed the future location for the skate park. That's gonna get brought back. Joel's gonna look into a couple different sites and options for that. We had an update on our 2023 budget and an update on the landscaping, as Joe had just talked about. Planning and zoning was, we scheduled a public hearing to bring our code book up to date. And we had talked about the selling of the police department, the old police department. That's all we had.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your work. Councilperson Fuhrer?
The EDA met earlier this month. We discussed, we approved some grants for the rehab grant program that we have. So there will be some changes happening downtown. Frederickson Properties, the facade will get some updates at the Pet Perfect building. Our revival will have is going to get paint. The Auto Works is going to get some facade improvements. So we've got those projects in the works.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Councilman Palava?
As she covered the EDA, and since the PD is done, I feel like the Maytag repairman.
We'll find you another project.
I should have, I knew that would be the case, so.
That R&R Revival, they've had quite a busy quarter there this
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
That's been really, really good.
Hope that sticks for them. It seems like a nice little addition.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The wind was a little hard on them over the Friday night into Saturday. They had a tough time, but a lot of traffic on Main Street over the weekend,
Nice.
which was good.
I think you mentioned the Field Bar building got sold. Hopefully that buyer will put a fruitful business in there and get a little more life to Main Street. I don't have that email with me that you sent me this morning about the Meals and Wheels. Do you have that handy? Maybe I got it on my phone, but I think that's a pretty cool thing. So, is it Three Rivers has funded a Meals and Wheels program for the city of Lonsdale. So if you care to volunteer or you care to sign up for Meals and Wheels, I think it's Carla Peterson?
Peterson, yeah.
Yeah.
Or if anyone has any questions, they can get a hold of me and I can get them the info as well. I'll be putting this stuff up on our website as well.
Okay, good.
So, I think they received enough funding initially for 2 days a week.
Okay.
So, they want to get the word out for people that can benefit from it, but then also volunteers that can deliver the meals.
Sure.
I believe that they're partnering with Something Tasty
Really?
to provide
Okay.
the meals.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, it's nice to have that program. So anyway, we got a lot done tonight. Again, thank everybody for your work on the budget and the tax levy and all that kind of stuff. We did a lot of good work, so that's about all I have.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second?
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting's adjourned.